IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Thursday, everybody. And you guys know what that means. We're diving into our keys to victory today for when Notre Dame travels down to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks for the first time in program history. This is a big game this weekend, so we're going to dive into our overall keys to victory for the team, for the offense, for the defense. Then we're going to dive into our game predictions, talk some game records. And then we're going to talk about the other games going around in college football. This is an exciting and fun slate of games this weekend. Brian, we have a lot coming out today, and I'm excited to dive into everything and get to talking about some football.
Yes. Yeah, can't wait, man. Obviously, we get closer and closer to the game and get more and more anticipation, more and more excitement, more and more nervousness. Honestly, this is a game that I'm a lot more nervous now than I thought I was going to be when the season started. We thought that Arkansas would be a good opponent, and they're going to be a good opponent. Arkansas is kind of who we thought they would be with a little better offense, or actually kind of a much better offense. But team similar to the team that they are, can they win tough games, big games, that kind of thing? They haven't shown that they can do that yet. And you got to make sure that they don't show that this weekend when you're Notre Dame. But a big moment and a big opportunity, Trev, as we talked about during the week. This is sort of a this is it's kind of like that the season is on the line kind of thing every week, but I don't feel like every game has the same level of anticipation because not every game has sort of the, this team can beat you kind of thing. And all the frustration that I have about this team so far, Miami and Texas A&M are still probably the two best teams they're going to play this year. At the very least, two of the three best teams that they're going to play this year. And the only other team that I think is on that level is USC, who so far has looked very good, in 4 games and didn't like their win over Michigan State wasn't pretty, but that actually impressed me because they don't have to be lights out. Everything's going perfectly to have a convincing win, and they had a convincing win. So, you look at those things and say, outside of that, I mean, everybody else is not as good as them. Meaning the two teams that they lost to, and they lost by 1 and 3 points. But that doesn't mean that that's the worst that Notre Dame can play this season either. I mean, we'll kind of see how it goes. So I just feel like if you win this game, all of a sudden your season turns around a little bit. You've got some momentum. You start to build some confidence. I don't think you can win the game without making some changes on defense. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's not enough. But, we'll find all those things out. But I'm excited about it, Trevor. I'm excited to get down there. It's my first time I'll be at, Razorback Stadium, which I'm excited about. I think it's the first time I've actually been in the state of Arkansas. I don't think I've ever driven through Arkansas in my travels. I know that we've driven through like Kansas and Nebraska and places like that, but I don't know that I've actually driven through Arkansas. So I'm excited about that. But big weekend for Notre Dame. Very big weekend, Trev. And I'm excited to kind of make our final predictions and talk game records. And then, man, it's a great weekend of college football. Like, I was kind of annoyed initially that this game was going to be at noon, 11 o'clock Central. But when you look at the rest of the slate, okay, I'll actually be able to watch some games, this weekend. And there's some big games playing. So I'm excited about it. Very excited about it. It'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Back-to-back weekends, we get to watch some Notre Dame football with the sun still up, something that I took for granted after their playoff run and after how they opened the season. So I'm very, very excited. But look, man, at the end of the day, these are the games that you love about college football. These are two programs that have, but each have 2 losses, and strong arguments could be made that Arkansas should have beaten Ole Miss and Memphis, and a very strong argument that Notre Dame should have beaten Miami and Texas A&M. So there's 2 big-name programs going at it for the first time in program history. Both are looking to pick up their first signature win of 2025, and that's what I love about this conversation. Brian, where we're going to start today is the keys to victory for this team as a whole. We'll get into offense and defense here a little bit down the road, but initially there are things that fall under of both sides: offense, defense, special teams, coaches on either side. And Brian, it's simple. It starts with having to be the more physical football team on Saturday.
The reason we're kind of going this direction, Trev, is because as I'm putting the keys together for this game, I'm thinking about these things that are sort of true for both sides of the ball. And I'll list out, different things that I think are important for a game. And when I do that, it's like, okay, I don't like to be repetitive. I don't like to, and repetitive meaning, you don't want to do the same things every week. I mean, you could honestly every single week get into a conversation about, okay, this week's game, the key for this week's game is be good on third down, don't turn over the football, create big play. I mean, you could literally regurgitate the same thing every week if you wanted to. But I don't like doing that. You know that. And I think because every game is also different and how every game, is really the focal points are different every game. And so, and I also don't like kind of repeating the same things for both sides of the ball. And so I was like, look, there's some things that I just think translate to both sides. And the first one is what you said, Trev. It's you've got to be the more physical football team in this game. You have to be. Arkansas is big and they're physical. Now, I think Notre Dame has a speed advantage, an athleticism advantage, a talent advantage. But the one thing that can kind of negate all those things is if you just get your butt kicked in the trenches. And this is a game on both sides of the ball that if you get your butts kicked in the trenches, and we'll dive more into this on both sides, but it's going to be hard for you to win this football game if you don't win in the trenches. You can still do it, but it's going to be uglier. It's going to be a little bit more hotly contested. It's going to be come down to the wire in a game that honestly, if Notre Dame plays their game, this is one of those contests, Trev, where I don't think that it should be overly close to be. I'm just being real with you. I don't think it should be like a 4-quarter down to the wire game if you play your game. If you don't play your game, not only will it be a close game, you could lose. And that's what makes this a bit of a challenge for Notre Dame is what will you do as a team? And that's why I say if you're not more physical, you have to at the very least match their physicality. The very least. If you match their physicality, then they can't beat you physically. Now it becomes a game of who schemed better, who executed better, who has better athletes, who has better this, who has better that, right? But if you can win the physicality battle on both sides of the ball, that's how you not only win, but you start winning and winning in an impressive fashion. Because, like, I hate to even bring this up at 1 and 2, I do, but you can't ignore it, and I'd be irresponsible. I ignored it. They still have to play Tennessee. They still have to play Texas A&M. They still have to play LSU. They still have to play Texas, and they have to play Missouri. All 5 teams to some degree, and they already played Ole Miss. So that's 6 teams that could be in the playoff hunt in November against Notre Dame with 2 losses. So you start saying like, okay, well, Arkansas played those teams, and those teams all beat Arkansas convincingly, but Notre Dame beat them by a last-second field goal. And those things kind of matter. So if you want to do that, you've got to win in the trenches. If you win in the trenches, Trev, I mean, it's never quite this simple, but it is. You win in the trenches, it's going to be much, much harder to lose this football game.
Oh, agreed. I mean, it's going to be a battle on both sides of the ball. And at the end of the day, we've seen flashes of physicality from both the offensive and defensive lines, but we haven't seen a consistent game where they've just came out and taken it to the opposing team in both trenches. And that's something that's going to be absolutely huge in this matchup. There's no way around it. At the bare minimum, we could talk Notre Dame has a talent advantage, and they don't have a Leonard Moore. They don't have a Jeremiah Love. That's fine. Notre Dame doesn't have a 6'5", 387-pound interior defensive tackle either. So it can go either way when we break down who has what. But at the end of the day, you're taking X's and O's out of it. You're taking what scheme, what man versus zone, and you can do pre-snap motion, and it doesn't matter. Because if you get dominated in the trenches, none of that stuff is going to matter anyway. So absolutely love that being the first key. But then that does kind of follow up into our second key, Brian, for the team, and it's be the aggressor on offense and defense. Take the fight to Arkansas. And I think that means even more with it being on the road. You're going down for the first time ever playing in that stadium. Back is against the wall. You have to play like you have nothing to lose. And so far, even especially defensively, that unit has played like they have a lot to lose. Almost every time they go out onto the field, it's very passive. Offensively, take the fight to them. You have to game plan to put as many points on the board as possible, because we can sit here and talk about, well, if the defense could do this and maybe it'll look like this and then play this guy, it'd be great. But until they prove that, the offense is also going to have to be the aggressor in this game.
There's no doubt, Trev. I think both sides of the ball, you have to take it to them. I think this team as a whole just doesn't have that same just in your face, we're going to come and really try to beat you and beat you bad that I think top teams need to have. And top Notre Dame teams in the past have had, where you don't belong on the field with us and we're going to show you why. And it starts, I mean, it's I don't know that that's even necessarily a player thing. I think part of it is this isn't as confident of a team as we've seen in the past. Defensively, I think this offensive team is a very confident football team. They've become more confident. And, you know, you watch what they, you watch how CJ Carr handles himself down 2 scores in the second half against Miami, and he's out there, playing. He makes mistakes. And what does he do after he throws the pick where the game could be over? He leads them to 10 straight points in their next 2 possessions. They're about, Texas A&M ties the game up 34-34, fourth quarter at your home stadium. This is your home opener. What's he going to do in front of the home crowd? Leads Notre Dame right down the field and scored a touchdown. He's confident in the players around him. The players around him are confident in him. There's confidence in the running backs. There's confidence in the receivers. I'm not as incredibly confident in the offensive line, but Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price played the last 2 games like they're confident in the offensive line, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter that I don't have confidence in him. CJ Carr, you say, well, he should have known this. He dropped back like he was confident that Anthony Knapp was going to have his backside, and you hope that doesn't go away, because that means Anthony Knapp does the job he needs to do. But you got to let those guys play confidently, though. You come out in this game and I was fired up that Marcus Freeman allowed them to come out and be aggressive against Purdue. That was great. Now keep doing that. Don't now pull the reins back in against maybe a tougher opponent. Like, oh, Arkansas can score, so let's just play ball control and all that. Now that's how you lose the momentum you're building. And then on the other side of the ball, you got to be the aggressor as well. You've allowed your first 3 opponents to dictate to you what's going to happen, and that's got to change. And so it's true on, and same thing on special teams, right? I mean, just, don't, if you see something, go after it. And that's the one thing that the last 2 years we've seen, even this season, that Marty Biaggi's going to get a lot of free reign in big moments to go after stuff. I mean, well-designed kick block early on against Texas A&M. Kick return game's been big so far this year. We know what they did in the postseason last year. So it's all phases. Be the aggressor. Take the fight to Arkansas in every single phase of the game, which also, as we talked about, ties into number 1. If you do, we should have actually done that first. And then what's a key to being the aggressor? Being the more physical football team. It's hard to be more physical if the game plan, the scheme, and the coaching going into the game doesn't require you or doesn't demand that you play an aggressive downhill style. Read and react makes it really hard for college kids to play a physical football game. And so those are all going to be keys.
Next couple of keys that we have here for the team, Brian, are a little bit more X's and O's based, not so much identity and culturally based. But look, at the end of the day, Notre Dame has to win the turnover battle, especially when you're on the road with this high-powered of an offense. On offense, you got to take care of the football. Defense, you have to attack the ball and make plays on it when you're given the opportunity. I think Purdue is the first game this year that they won the turnover battle. I think they won it, 2-1, I believe?
2-1, yeah.
Yeah. So Notre Dame's going to have to find a way on the road to win the turnover battle, because that was something they had a lot of success in last year.
I mean, they didn't turn it over a ton last year, Trev, and they dominated like when it came to forcing turnovers. Yeah. Now, it did take them a little bit last year to kind of get going from like a forced fumble standpoint, but they were still picking passes off early in the season. But, you look at last season, Trev, they lost the turnover battle twice last season, Northern Illinois and Penn State. And the Penn State game caused a game that Notre Dame, I felt, was on the verge of steamrolling Penn State in the second half. All of a sudden, they get the momentum back, and now it's a dogfight till the end of the game. And, you point to 2025, they lost it by 2 to Miami, lost by 3 points, tied against Texas A&M. But I would also call, the muff PAT is kind of similar to a turnover because it takes points off the board. And then you won it by 1 against Purdue. Like, you've got to get back to being a team that forces turnovers And look, I can live with a turnover a game. I can live with that if you're playing an aggressive style, but that means your defense has to match its aggressiveness and be a team that forces more turnovers. Do that on the road, it's a lot easier to win. There's no doubt about that.
Last thing, Brian, Notre Dame last season was exceptional in the middle eight. And this year, for lack of a better word, they've gotten dominated in the middle eight. They've gotten outscored 31-14. They lost the middle eight to Miami 14-0. They lost the middle eight to Texas A&M 7-0. And Purdue put up 10 points to end the first half, all inside of the final 4 minutes of the first half. You know, and the first points that Notre Dame scored in the middle eight was a 100-yard kick return by Jadarian Price. So it's not like they drove down the field. Now, we can have conversation of would we have been confident that they would have? Yeah. But I was also confident on their fifth drive of the game that they were going to drive down the field and put up points with 1:46 left. And it was a one-play strip sack. So you just never know how everything is going to pan out. But the first time Notre Dame scored in the middle eight, it took a 100-yard kick return by Jadarian Price to put points on the board. This is a game that Notre Dame has to win. And it's crazy as this sounds, Brian, 31 of those points that they've allowed, 24 of them have came in the end of the first half. Notre Dame has struggled to close going into halftime. There's not a game that they've gone into halftime with momentum. And that's something that just absolutely has to change, especially when you're on the road. We said in the Miami game, you give this crowd a reason to still be in it. End of the second quarter, coming into the third quarter, they're going to be raucous the rest of the game. You know, you need reasons for Notre Dame's home crowd to still be in it. Go into halftime with a little bit of momentum. Give up a touchdown at the end of the half. Even with Purdue, you get a 100-yard kick return for a touchdown, and you just couldn't let Purdue score. It took them 53 seconds, 6 plays to go 75 yards and throw a touchdown pass. Notre Dame has to find a way to win the middle eight with a heavy emphasis on closing the first half strong, especially when they're on the road, man. It's going to be huge.
I mean, honestly, Trevor, when you look at it, the frustrating thing is if they would have just stopped Miami and A&M and just held them to field goals on their final drives of the second quarter, Notre Dame is 3-0 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you can give up scores, just hold them to field goals.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's the frustrating part for me is that, you know, I mean, A&M scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5.5 minutes of the second quarter. I mean, so that even right outside the middle eight, but you know, you give up that field goal or give up that touchdown instead of a touchdown with a minute 11 left. And then you go down and you give up a sack in a situation, you know, your offense goes down and CJ completes a big ball down the field. You got the ball in their territory with time left. You need a first down and you're in field goal territory. You've got a shot to score. I mean, you're inside the 50 with less than a minute left. I don't care if you have timeouts or not. You're in scoring territory, especially with the weapons Notre Dame has. And they give up a sack and they get nothing. And then, of course, you allow Miami to go on a over 5-minute drive that basically eat up the whole – literally the only snap that Notre Dame took in the middle eight on offense against Miami was taking a knee. They didn't even have the ball in the middle eight. Like that is one of those things where it's like, this is more of a defensive thing, but then offensively, your one opportunity to do something in a contested game in the middle eight, and you give up a big sack and turn it over on downs, and it becomes just a disaster possession.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even against Texas A&M at the end of the first half, you have the weird, you know, the frustrated clap, you get the errant snap, and then Texas A&M gets the ball back close to the 50-yard line. They run a couple plays, they're in field goal range. Now, luckily, they missed. But you can't count on that every single time, you know, so that stuff has to get cleaned up as well. So it's, you know, it's one of those things where the middle eight hasn't been too kind for Notre Dame this season, and it's one that absolutely has to turn around. And again, can't emphasize this enough, especially on the road, because we've seen what happened in week 1 when they didn't.
I'll tell you another thing on the road that's important, Trev, is your special teams can't hurt you. Look, it's always good when your special teams can step up and help you. That's always a plus. I love that. I love when the special teams can step up and make plays and do things for you. But at the end of the day, what you can't do on the road is cost you points. And for the most part, the special teams has done its job this year when it comes to doing no harm. I mean, we haven't had any turnovers on special teams. They haven't had any kicks blocked. But what I don't think they've missed a field. Have they missed a field goal? Am I drawing a blank on them missing a field goal? I don't remember them missing a field goal.
Or just in entirety. They missed one against Purdue, but it was late.
Yeah, and that was the backup place kicker. That's right. They did miss that one when it was 56-23. So yes, that's a good point. But they haven't missed a meaningful game. They haven't had a punt blocked. James Rendell has been outstanding so far this season in limited opportunities. Well, limited because of the Purdue game. He had plenty of opportunities the first two games. And I think he's been really good. So you've got the kick return for a touchdown. You had even earlier in the game, you had a big kick return that gave you possession. Jadarian Price, was it A&M or Miami? He had another return that got you the ball out past the 30. I think it was. It's been a crazy few weeks.
I think it was A&M.
That's what I thought. And so your special teams has been good so far. You have to continue that. You can't let a kick get blocked. I mean, of course, you also have the punt block for a touchdown against Texas A&M. So it's been a good start to the season for the special teams, with one big exception. You've got to make sure that this game is clean. And if you can provide big plays, great. But my standard for do your job for special teams is don't make mistakes. Catch, kick, tackle. That's the big key for me on special teams.
Agreed.
So those are some of the team type of things. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was going to say, special teams wise, be who you were against Miami and Purdue, and put some of the stuff behind you in the past from what you did against Texas A&M. You had the botched hold. You did give up a kick return for a touchdown that did get called back for a hold, but that was still, that was one of them.
I get it, but the kick return went right where the guy got tackled, on the hold, and they did have a blocked punt for a touchdown in that game, though.
They did.
So, but to your point, yeah, you got to be clean. You got to be clean on special teams in this game.
Well, what we know, man, is this has the makings of a high-scoring game, and it's going to be one that hopefully when we dive into the keys won't be as high-scoring. Right now on FanDuel, the over-under for the points for Arkansas is 29.5. So they're expecting them to score around 30, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. But nonetheless, we are in for a high-powered matchup. Hopefully they can knock out some of these overall team keys to victory, Brian. But that's going to do it for part one of today's show. But don't go anywhere. We are getting ready to dive into the keys to victory on offense. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And then, as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.